First of all, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are on this wonderful planet of ours. My name is Matthew Porcelli. I am the member of the IFPO Ethics Committee. I am very, very honored and privileged to be your moderator and your host today as we have some really exciting news as we publicized. This is really big news for the security industry. The Master Security Instructor certification. Wow, this is some really dynamite news coming out of the one and only IFPO. With that, I wanted to introduce, like I said, we're going to introduce our esteemed panel, our wonderful CEO, Sandy Davies, in a moment. Just some housekeeping rules. We were here to answer any questions you may have, whether it be during this webinar or after the webinar. Please put them in the chat. We'll do our best to get to each question in due time as we go along. With that as well, I'd like to turn it over to Sandy Davies, our IFPO CEO. Sandy, take it away.
Thank you, Matt. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for this highly anticipated and exciting event. We're thrilled to have such a diverse global audience as we unveil our latest certification that promises to revolutionize the security training sector of our chosen industry. This is not just another certification. It results from extensive research, innovative thinking, and a commitment to excellence. We can't wait to share it with you. Let's begin by introducing our MSI committee and the incredible journey that has led us to this moment. Thank you, and let's get started. I turn it back to you, Matt.
Sandy, thank you very much. This is a panel that needs really no introduction. We have first, again, they'll introduce themselves briefly. Their acumen in this field and being on this committee is, we're at a debt to them, putting this MSI working group together. First, we'll start with Nadeem Iqbal. He's the IFPO Director of Mensa and global member of the advisory board. Nadeem, please, you want to tell us a little brief bit about yourself?
Sure. Thank you, Matt. Good afternoon from where I am at the moment in Saudi Arabia. Good morning to the people in the North Americas, and good evening to those who are towards the South. My name is Nadeem Iqbal. I've been associated with IFPO since 2007. Currently, I am heading the MENASA region, which is Middle East, North Africa, and South Asia. Quite a vast territory, very diverse team of people that I work with. And I'm also advisory board member for strategy and growth of the organization. Thank you. Kevin?
Yes, hi. Well, my name is Kevin Palacios. I'm a IFPO Global Advisory Board member. I'm also the director for IFPO in Latin America. Been a member of IFPO actually 20 years now. This will be my anniversary. And I'm more than thrilled to share this enormous advancement that we're having right now with the Master Security Instructor certification. Glenn?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Glenn Kitteringham. It's 8 a.m. where I am in Calgary, Alberta. I'm a security consultant right now. I've been working in the industry for 34 years. I've been associated with IFPO all the way back to 1991 when I got my CPO. And I've made a study of security officers. It's been key part of my research for the last several years. And that's me, Gary.
Hi, I'm Gary Bergen from Ireland. I'm the Ireland Advisory Board member. I have a master's in security management, and I am currently studying for a doctorate with the University of Portsmouth on security syllabus design for Security Syllabi International.
So as you can see, there's no lack of experience here. And yeah, this is just, we cannot contain the excitement here. So without further ado, Nadeem, please take us away on this exciting journey of the MSI.
Thank you, Matt. Hello there. Once again, it's me. And as I have always been known to be thinking future looking into the times to come ahead, I would take a few minutes to explain my thoughts on what we are doing and why we are doing. So if we look at where we stand today, very exciting times. There are almost 10 billion people on globe who are at the workplace, starting from the baby boomers to the generation X, the millennials or the generation Y and the generation Z. We have got a very broad mix of people. Each one of them bring their own specific behaviors, attitudes, abilities to the workplace. What does it tell us? It tells us that we are literally at a stage where integration is the name of the game. However, we are also conscious that things are moving very fast. Few years back, people used to own property and would have hotels, and there were people who owned a large fleet of automobiles and they run the taxis or rent a car business. But that's not the game today. Today, if I own a car, I am in the business of providing a ride to the people who need the ride. And this all has happened because the technology enabled it. And this is not going to stop here. The impact of technology, the demographics, and also the ease of learning, where with few clicks, you could find anything and everything that is available on the internet. It becomes very much reachable to you. The impact, how the workforce will change, this is all being impacted by technology. It has impact on individuals. They continue to learn all their life, new skills, new behaviors, new concepts. They select their own career path for development rather than what has been given by the organization. And obviously, they today carry more grit and passion for their self-development. Likewise, it also impacts the organizations because the way the organizations now design and create jobs and the way the work processes are linked to each other, that's altogether different than what it was 10 years back. Why to go 10 years? 5 years back, there was a lot more cash moving hand to hand, but the blessing in disguise, what everybody saw from the COVID, now there are more transactions electronically made than the number of bills that we change from one hand to the other, which means technology is impacting not only the job, but the way the job is done. Therefore, more and more talent is being integrated. So if I was performing a job as health and safety officer or a security officer, I just don't need the security and safety skills, but I also need the technology skills. Hence, this also impacts the business models. There was a time we waited for employees to come to the office, but that's not the case. Now we have people working off the floor, on the floor, on different time zones. Particularly myself, Menasa, my region. So the work starts down in the Philippines and Indonesia 4 hours before it starts in Dubai, and it continues to happen 3 hours after it closes in Dubai because Tunisia and Morocco are still working. So that's the dynamism what organizations are facing, and so are the expectations of customers. It doesn't stop there. Moving on to the industry, gone are the days when a legal framework used to be superimposed on the way business was done. Time has come where the regulators are closely working with the legal implication. They are bringing in the technology into the role offered by human, and the job complexities are being either made less intricate, and in some cases, they become more complex jobs because a process is shared between different desks. So that being the background, there was a need that we stay up to date, we look into the future, and that was the basis of working towards the MSI. Next slide, please, Kevin. So what were the drivers for Master Security Instructor? Explosive growth of information. With one click, you can have all the information on the screen that you want. How much of that can actually be absorbed and put to practice? That's one question. Corporate learning. Almost every organization have a library of resources. They have subscribed to different platforms like Udemy, Coursera, etc., etc. But if we leave each individual to learn by himself, he may do so. Nonetheless, the impact back on the organization would be limited because that's where the personal interests were behind the learning. As the technology comes to play, the work is becoming automated, yes, but then the human is there in the center of all the work being performed. There is a need for greater human skills, communication, collaboration, working in different time zones, different places, different cultures. So then again, this results into more integrated, pragmatic sources of learning. Also, the people who enable the learning. Last not the least, the demand for inclusive and experiential learning. People may go to a classroom and come out in 3 or 5 days' time, and it will not take another 5 days that they have forgotten what was learned out there. Hence, there is a need that every piece of learning, every program is linked to its context. So people are trained on processes, not of the work, rather on the work. So all these factors of technology, development, and the changing paradigm convinced us at IFPO to look into a qualification, a certification which brings in talent with greater experience, greater qualifications. That being said, I invite Kevin to please take this forward.
Thank you, Nadim. As you well mentioned, the IFPO, we felt the need to, again, always innovate. And as we are, of course, big supporters of education, security education globally, we decided to create a certification that will go beyond what we already have. You may all be aware of the Certified Protection Officer Instructor, CPOI certification, which has been a key for the development of IFPO during the past couple of decades. And yes, in this case, well, as you may already know, the CPOI is a designation that requires you to be a member of IFPO, to have certain levels of security experience, post-secondary education, and also some teaching experience. The CPOI was a certification. It was, of course, aimed at people that were looking forward to deliver and instruct IFPO programs. Especially, you know, as many of our corporate members will take good advantage of everything that IFPO has to offer. Some of them even became registered as a approved training center, which is also a very interesting part. But in this case, as I told you, well, we decided to go one step beyond. Many of us who are already CPOIs can apply with the proper experience, with the proper credentials to the next step. So the next step will be this MSI certification. It will be completely explained today. But yeah, the idea is to allow or to credit people that are actually teaching beyond IFPO certifications, especially on the corporate settings, even academia, and also for highly specialized security training skills. Having said that, the rest of the team is going to explain about this journey that we went through in order to create this new certification. We're all excited about. Glenn?
Yeah, if you just advance, please. So I just want to put this in context. This is not the first competency model around the security industry. I'm sure many of you are aware of the groundbreaking work that ASIS International did with the development of the enterprise security competency model. When I looked at that, though, I saw that, it starts at the security manager level, and that's all well and fine, but we obviously came to realize that we needed to have additional competency models for the positions beneath that. And so the first bit of work that we did on this was the Security Officer Patrol Services competency model, which has several years of research behind it. It was the research that I did on my doctoral thesis on security guard training from around the world, and then we use that as a springboard to conduct global IFPO global-based research, and we looked at security officers and their tasks in 9 separate countries. We put out a report, and then we worked very closely with the U.S. Department of Labor, and we created this competency model. And then from that, we used that as a springboard to develop both the security supervisor competency model and a security instructor competency model, obviously, which is what we're talking about today. And so the work that went into that was a review, a standard process was a literature review. And we looked at what the literature was out there on instructor competency models, security instructor competency models. And I personally, and I don't know if anybody else, we haven't been able to find anything. And so obviously we felt it was time to develop our own, hence this development and this pathway to the MSI. And so as you can see, there's a number of resources that we referred to, and a lot of it, to be perfectly honest, was outside of the security industry. And we just had to look at what are the competencies that security officer or security instructors require. And we went from there. And so we developed the draft model, and we brought in a number of subject matter experts, the same number of subject matter experts, to be perfectly honest, that we had worked with for several months in the development of the security officer competency model. And we incorporated their comments into the process. We identified what security instructor tasks were. And then we wanted to take it to that next level, because not only were we looking at just general instructor competencies, but the conversation started to evolve into the Master Security Instructor competency or Master Security Instructor certification. And as Kevin has already said, we wanted to take it beyond the CPOI. And so we also developed that. And as you can see in the competency model before you, the tier 4, there's knowledge of adult learning principles, assessing performance requirements, designing training programs, et cetera, et cetera. Now, we are obviously going to make this competency model available to everybody. And it is in what I would consider draft form at this point. It's probably never going to be complete. We're looking for feedback from people and looking at to make it better all the time. Fundamentally, the tier 4 is what any instructor should know, the skills that they should have in order to be a good instructor, regardless of whether they're teaching security people or any other occupation. And so again, and just for those of you not familiar with competency model, I just want to very, very quickly talk about tiers 1 through 3. Those are the same sets of tiers that the U.S. Department of Labor has created for a number of occupations out there. So building on tier 4, we moved to tier 5 with the Master Security Instructor, and we created an application process. And as you can see, we created 4 separate categories. We wanted people to have the appropriate security qualifications and the security experience. And by security qualifications, we mean education and training certifications. And degrees, diplomas, but formal training. I'm a firm believer that if you've got an instructor who's never taken a course in adult learning, what they're fundamentally saying is they don't really believe in adult learning because they're not, or they don't believe in training because they're not willing to get trained themselves. So anyway, as you can see, we've got qualifications, security and education, and we've broken it up that way. So not only do you have to have security, but you have to have adult learning experience and adult learning qualifications. And then finally, to the tier 6, through the research that we did with the development of the security officer competency model and building on the research that ASIS did, they identified 10 security technical sector technical competencies, but we took it further and we've now got 22, I believe. And what we feel is that they represent all sectors of the economy. And it's our belief that if you're going to be teaching as an instructor in these areas, you should probably have experience, at least in the areas that you're teaching. So on that note, I will turn it over to Gary.
Next slide, please, Glenn. So, however, I'm going to give you an overview of the application process to become an MSI. So the process has been designed to be rigorous, ensuring that only the highest people with the highest qualifications and experience are actually awarded the MSI certification. So it is a peer-reviewed process. So your journey to becoming an MSI will begin with a peer-reviewed process that consists of multiple stages, and each is designed to evaluate different aspects of the applicant's qualifications and experience. So we have two main processes, which is document assessment and professional interview. So the first stage of the document assessment is where two registered MSIs will independently review your application. This assessment is critical as it sets the foundation for your candidacy. So applicants must submit detailed documentation, including application form, CV, certificates, letters of confirmation regarding their experience. So each document is scrutinized to ensure accuracy and relevance. Then you go on to a professional interview. If your documents pass the assessment stage, you move on to professional interview stage. So this interview is conducted again by two MSI assessors who are not involved in the document review. So it's completely separate. The focus of the interview, the interview is designed to evaluate your depth of knowledge, experience, and instructional capabilities. It's also a chance for the interviewers to verify the information that you provided within your application form. So the recommendation process for admittance and review by MSI registrars, of which there are two, one for document assessment and one for interviewers. So following the interview assessors would submit their report and their recommendations to the registrar. The next step is to involve the review by the MSI registrars, who will carefully consider these recommendations. That is then forwarded on to IFPO Global Advisory Board, basically for ratification then. And then the final decision to admit is given to the IFPO Global Advisory Board based on the recommendations from the two MSI registrars, ensuring that the highest standards are upheld. So this structured approach ensures that the MSI certification remains a prestigious, respected designation within the security industry, and it highlights the importance through the evaluation stage from documentation to interviews, ensuring that only the most qualified professionals are certified. So next slide, please, Kevin. So now you have an overview. I'm going to take you through the document assessment aspect in a little bit more detail. So step one is the first step is the MSI application process, and it's a thorough document assessment. So applicants are required to submit several key documents, including the MSI application form. So this is the primary form where you will outline your qualifications, your experience, and any other relevant details that you believe support your application. We need a copy of your current resume, So this should detail your professional background, highlighting your experience in your field. Copies of all certificates. So you have to provide verifiable copies of all certifications that you mention within your application. Letters of confirmation of experience. So these could support the experience you've claimed, ideally from past employers, clients, educational institutions that you might have taught at. You have a confirmation of criminal background status. This is just that you are verifying that you don't have a criminal background. This to ensure that all applications meet the ethical standards required by IFPO. Confirmation of ID. So we need valid identification to verify your identity within the application process, and any other supporting documents that you feel are necessary. So this can include CPD certificates, letters of recommendation, awards, memberships, that kind of stuff. So the assessment criteria. So 2 independent registered MSIs carry out the document assessment independently of each other, and to provide a report to the document assessment registrar. So the scoring in that, so to move forward in the process, applicants have to score a minimum of 25 in each of the following categories. So we've broken it down into security qualifications, security experience, education and training qualifications, and education and training experience. So if I go back a step, security qualifications, this evaluates the formal security related qualifications that you hold. Your security experience is your practical experience in the field that's reviewed. Your education and training and qualifications, this looks at your academic and instructional credentials. And your education and training experience, here the focus is on your actual hands-on experience in training and teaching others. So overall, you need to score a minimum of 70% is required to advance to the next stage, which is the interview stage of the application process. So now I'm going to take you through, next slide please, Kevin. So now I'll take you through the MSI interview process. So after an applicant has successfully passed the document assessment stage, the next critical phase is the MSI professional interview. So this interview is a key component in determining whether the applicant possesses the necessary knowledge, experience, and instructional capabilities to earn the MSI, Master Security Instructor certification. So the interview, again, it is peer reviewed. It's conducted by 2 MSI interviewers. The interview will be conducted who have not, by MSIs who have not been involved in any way, shape, or form with the document assessment. So this ensures that an unbiased evaluation of your application. They will then provide a report to the interview registrar independently of each other. The purpose of the interview is primarily to validate the information that you've already provided in your application and to assess your expertise in a more interactive and dynamic setting. So the interviewers will have thoroughly reviewed your application beforehand and will focus on specific areas of your qualifications that they feel may need more probing. So the key areas of focus will be your qualifications and experience. So expect in-depth discussions about your security-related qualifications and your practical experience. The interviewers will likely ask you to elaborate on key points from your application, providing examples of how you got the applied knowledge, how you apply knowledge in real-world scenarios. Your education and training qualifications will be assessed, so your academic background, any formal training certifications will be closely examined. The interviewers may ask you to discuss your approach to teaching and how your qualifications have informed your instructional methods. The practical teaching and instructional experience, this section will assess your hands-on experience in delivering training and education. So be prepared to discuss your teaching methods, your philosophy, and the impact you had on your students or your trainees. So just some of the interview topics, you may be presented with hypothetical security scenarios to test your problem-solving skills and your ability to deploy knowledge in the practical situations. The interviewers may look for instructional methods, so they may explore your approach to instruction, looking for evidence of effective teaching strategies that cater to adult learners. Your professional reflection, so this part will serve as an opportunity for you to reflect on your career, discussing how your experiences have prepared you for the role as an MSI. So to conclude, the professional interview is a crucial step of the certification process. It allows the assessors to gauge the depth of your security and training knowledge and instructional capabilities in a way that a written application can't. So performing well in this interview is essential to advancing toward that certification. I'd like to hand you back to Matthew Porcelli, who will answer any questions now that you may have around the MSI process.
Thank you very Sorry about that. Thank you very much, Gary, Kevin, Glenn, Nadeem. That was great. I know we covered a lot of material there. We did get a lot of great questions. Also, as well, if we don't cover them all, you want to know more, you see there info at ifpo.org. You see there we have a special 20% discount as well if you register before the 10th of October 2024 to avail a 20% discount. And you have the code there is MSI 2024. So some of the questions that came in, and Gary, it was mostly, I know during yours, but anybody can jump in, you know, any of the other presenters can jump in as well. Most of them came on with regards to costs. I know, Gary, you covered, I bet, a bunch of these already, but the fee structure, as far as what is the fee structure, and I believe that part is going to be covered a little later on, correct? If I'm not mistaken. Somebody wants to jump in on that?
If I might jump in.
Yes, please, Andy.
So currently the price is going to be posted on our website for $3.99. With the discount, I believe that equates to $319. And it is a payment process where you submit a portion of that to submit the application. And if you pass the application process, then you can then progress to the interview and pay that out, the remaining balance. And correct me if I'm wrong, other committee members, but I believe that that's what we had determined in our last meeting.
Right. Well, but further, we're breaking it down, and there's going to be initial application fee of $200, and then if the applicant proceeds through the entire process, then there's post 20% discount, or accepting 20% discount, there'll be a $199 fee for processing the certification. So I'd noticed a couple of questions here too, which is one of the questions was who's going to be doing this, and I mean, we're all involved in this. We've been involved in this for several months now in this particular MSI process, and we'll be working through each of the applications. And another question was asking, well, how long will an application take? I would suggest it's probably going to be on a first come, first served basis, but I would suggest it's probably going to take at least a month to finalize, or from beginning to end. Now, having said that, this is going to be brand new for all of us too, and so we're obviously going to have to work through the process. And just, I want to add a qualifier there. IFPO has got many years of processing certification applications and the CPOI and whatnot. So it's not like we're starting from scratch. So again, IFPO has a wealth of experience in processing applications, but the rest of us, you know, some of us are going to be interviewers, and some of us are going to be auditors and verifiers. And we're going to work through this process, and I'm under no illusions. It's like anything. It's going to take a little bit of time to work out probably the kinks out of the whole thing. I mean, we do have a written process that we're going to follow. But as time goes on, it will become more and more streamlined, and it will get shorter and shorter. But depending on the interest out there, we don't know if we're going to get 5 applications or 500. You know, we got to work our way through this. So anybody want to add anything to that? Well,
actually, I want to just piggyback Glenn as well. This is, you know, a top tier certification. This is not something that, again, that is just a, put the money down and you get a certification. This is a very serious instructor gold standard certification in the security field. So, again, it does, as Glenn had it depends on, the amount of those applications that come in, as well as the time it takes to, to process and so forth. So, there is patience that is asked while this is being done as well. I've noticed also that there, we just actually see another question here, because we have a very diverse amount, from Michael Radner, had asked, since there are several country-specific regulations, SIA in the UK, forgive me if I'm not saying this correct, it's a GWO in Germany, etc. In Europe, are there any countries that recognizes this MSI certification? Whoever wants to take that.
There's long and the short, no, not at this point.
It is
And,
designed, sorry, it is designed to be a globally recognized certification, as is our other certifications at the IFPO. So the boundaries are limitless.
Oh, and Bob Russell, it's MSI. I think you said you kept hearing MSO. It's MSI. I see another question here, Walter. Are there plans to have all the MSIs listed on? Which is a good point. Are there plans to have all IFPO MSIs listed on the IFPO website? Again, Sandy, I can't see why not. I mean, it's an honor, something to be very proud of. As I said, this, just like how everybody at IFPO, we're proud of all our certificate, those that are certified. So I would say absolutely. Again, a lot of the questions that came through, because we had a few people come in late, Gary did cover succinctly on his slide. As far as does anybody else, I don't think there is any other newer questions that came with regards, because I know the pricing and the details, that is going to be on the website, and any other certification questions can be added on moving forward. Actually, here's one that just came up.
Matt, if I may,
yes.
Matt, there's a question that is having a CPOI is a prerequisite. So certainly that's not the case. As long as one can demonstrate his ability of instructing through the experience documents and some qualifications, that's what it takes, along with the security qualifications and experience. So CPOI is not a prerequisite for MSI.
Thank you, Nadeem. No, thank you.
That came in there. Will there be a grandfather clause for those of us who've been instructors forever? No, there is no grandfather clause. I personally have gone through the process. Glenn has gone through the process. Matthew's gone through the process. Nadeem has, and Kevin. We've all gone through the process. So there is no grandfather clause. Anyone who earns this qualification will have the qualification. Will have earned it.
If I can just jump in here for a second and just talk about that, and I can appreciate the question, and if somebody's been in the industry for a long time, but part of the reason that we decided that we needed to create this certification and a competency model and educational standards is, quite frankly, the security industry, I don't consider it to be a profession, but it is becoming a profession. But you need to have a lot of formal training and education. That's what I firmly believe in. And right now it is an unregulated industry. And we all know there are many, many, many people who work in the industry who have no formal training or certification. They've never worked in the industry, like they transfer in from other sectors. And we just decided collectively, like if we are ever going to professionalize, we've got to stop doing that, and we've got to encourage formal education and training and certification and standards. It's just that simple.
Absolutely. I mean, this is the only way to get close to the C-suite table, is to formalize and to regularize. I agree.
Matt, allow me, Matt, to just answer one more question from Saeed Al-Shahri. He says if he submits the application before 10th of October, and then could he delay the rest of the process? Absolutely, Saeed. It's a certification on which you are demonstrating your capabilities. So what time you choose to complete the documentation is no problem, as long as you submit the application before 10th of October to avail the discount. I hope that has answered your question.
Yeah. And also too, it didn't, also too, I think it's fair to say that all of us are LinkedInable, if that's even a word. Anybody that has any questions, that don't use Sandy is generously, as our CEO has given the website, excuse me, her email address. We have a generic IFPO email that to use, but you could reach out to any of us and we can, via whether it be LinkedIn, email, whatnot, and we'll get the answer for you if need be. There's gonna be certain questions. So, again, we'll collectively, that's why we have a committee together. And I see Gary answered that question. Thank you for Isa. What is the plan to include African countries in this training? It's a global, as Sandy said, it's a global certification. So, as far as I'm concerned, lines on a map are irrelevant. Does anybody else? I'm just monitoring it here.
There's a question about a refund if you make it, if an applicant is not successful.
Right.
If there's a refund, there will be a partial refund. I believe we're gonna, the application process is a $200 fee. And if an applicant is unsuccessful, they get a 50% refund on that $200.
Yeah.
Yeah.
May I add, Glenn, we're probably one of the only other organizations that does that. I mean, you go for most, other certifications, they don't give you a refund like that. Like at least part of your, so that's another thing too, which is a huge bonus because I know most of us have other certifications that we're very proud of, but too, there is that other item that makes it kind of, a little bit more easier, when moving through the process, if it gets to that point.
There's a question here about the pay scheme is kind of off-putting from Steve. And Steve, believe me, we had that conversation. I mean, if you look at the membership, or not the membership, but the group that we put together for this, we've got people from all over the world. We had that conversation. In fact, we had it a couple of times. And I fully acknowledge that there are absolute differences between different countries, and one person being able to pay for it in one country is going to be far more difficult than somebody else. Let's say in the United States or Canada or England. We did have that conversation, but we also talked about comparing this certification with other global standards, and we saw that there is a fixed price around the world. But I understand where you're coming from, and it's a very valid question. Sandy, I mean, as in your position, I mean, IFPO is a global security organization. Any additional thoughts on that?
Well, no, we currently have students and graduates and members in over 86 countries. So I think that that's tangible proof that we really want to expand our global footprint, and we're geared to accommodate as best we can to various countries who ask for assistance. We have been known to do that in the past, but we are not in a position, or it's not our desire to post that. It would go under consideration. Let's just put it that way. I hope that answers your question.
I think the other thing is we looked at is like we actually had a fair amount of conversation about what to call this designation. And obviously we've come up with Master Security Instructor. And to us, there's a lot of meaning in that title. And I mean, this is meant for those instructors who have worked in the industry for many years, who are in senior positions, who have the requisite experience, who have the requisite certifications, who both from a security perspective and from an adult learning perspective. I mean, this is not for a frontline or a first-time trainer who's involved in maybe in just teaching like a one-off course. I mean, this is for that dedicated adult learning instructor who's been working in the industry.
And also,
Glenn-
Glenn, if I may, sorry, Nadeem, really quick, I was a frontline officer and I'm a frontline manager now, and I train a lot. So those that are frontline officers who may employ frontline officers, this is something to work up to. This certification, this MSI certification. So again, it's just, as Glenn had said, it's not just, this is like, we have a lot of individuals that, that out there nowadays that just train because they're forced to train or train because they have no choice to train. This is a real milestone to live up to and to aspire to achieve. Obviously, the MSI has prerequisites and criteria of the highest standard. However, it's something that we want to always encourage our frontline staff to say. I know I speak, very highly of that because I am on the front line personally. So, Nadeem, please.
Thank you. Allow me to answer a question from Omer Malik. He's asking if the certification accredited from an awarding authority. Omer, good question, and thank you for that. That would clear doubts for many others. It is not a qualification. Award bodies approve the certification of qualifications. This is literally a peer review. So a committee actually goes through the applications, reviews them, conducts the interview, and then confirms award of this certification by nobody else but IFPO, who has been involved in writing, delivering security training programs for more than 40 years. I hope that answers to your question to some extent, Umar.
Yep, you did. Thank you. Aaron actually sent just sent a question for the assessment. Is it based on comparison to others? Because over time and applicants, some have 30 years experience, the comparison to 10 years. I don't know if you guys see that. If you have 9 to 10, then have 30 years. It seems like as far as like a sliding scale, 30 plus years if you have logically. So I get as far as maybe this goes for the assessment process, it seems like this is a question for if somebody wants to take that, potentially dilute the individual with 10 years. I mean, if anybody wants to take this question.
So what we've agreed is we're going to look at, it'll be kind of 1.2 years managerial experience you have. If you have strategic experience, you get higher points. If you're just an officer, it would be from experience probably half a point per year of experience, and that's how you would manage this. This is not for someone who was just a couple of years in the industry. That is not what this certification is for. And it also has to balance your training experience with your security experience. This is a Master Security Instructor program. We don't expect everybody to pass this.
If I can jump in as well, I just want to say two things very quickly. Just one is to echo what Matthew said, is that I was a frontline security officer. I was a uniformed security officer, working the night shift at a local site. I mean, that was 30 plus years ago, but I've worked my way up. The other thing to the question about, is it based on a comparison to others? My interpretation of this is no, it's not. You're not being compared to others. Basically, we're just looking at what you're bringing. And I appreciate what you're saying is that if one person has 30 years of experience and another person has 10 years of experience, we're not comparing people against one another. What we are is we've created this minimum standard. And as Gary has said, that there's 4 criteria, right? Security experience, security education, adult learning experience, adult learning education. And the most points you can get in any one of those 4 areas, 25, but you need to get a minimum of 15 out of 25 in each of those categories, but you also need to score at least 70%. Like, this is not one of those 50 plus 1% things where you can just squeak through. Again, I mean, I think the name says it all. It's a Master Security Instructor. We are looking for with people who've got years of dedication and commitment, and it's something to work towards.
Sorry, well, if I can judge, There's a question which I did address on the chat box about a gentleman who's asking for training resources to assist in delivering security training. So maybe, and forgive me if I was not clear, IFPO does have a program for frontline trainers, instructors, and that is the CPOI. Yeah. So the CPOI is basically the program for you if you're looking to initiate yourself into the security training arena. And of course, CPOIs, they receive all of these training help, training aids, even PowerPoint presentations and so on to present mostly for frontline officers, all of IFPO's programs. So yeah, if you are new into the training area and if you are looking forward to initiate yourself as an instructor, CPOI will be the suggestion for you. Now, MSI, as I did explain, is a progression of CPOI. So yeah, if you already have your CPP, if you already have your CSSM, you have more than 20 years experience, if you have been training for thousands of hours and you're even delivering maybe on a academic level or you're doing training constantly and you want to go to the next step and be recognized for all of that hard effort and of course, yeah, become a Master Security Instructor, then MSI is your program. Yeah. So yeah, these are two separate levels. And yeah, that is mainly the message that I would like to stress right now. Thanks.
Anybody have any last question? We are going to wrap up in about 2 minutes. I obviously know I'm conscious of time that, people have top of the hour appointments. This is not going to be the last. We intend to do more of these webinars. And just kind of to sum up, again, and Kevin, thank you. IFPO does offer a lot of wonderful certifications. We have, everything from the initial security officer program to the CPOI to the MSI. So there's always something for everybody here. I'm going to, I believe we have a few more messages. Take one more. Do you have a plan? This is from Isaac. Do you have a plan of introducing an investigation certification? Well, maybe we could go into that later. Isaac, that's a great program. Because we're always looking to further investigate, different programs. We could go into that. I want to keep this completely on the MSI so we could stay on track. But definitely, not falling on deaf ears. We could look into that. So let's see. Aaron, can you last week? Can you go back to the slide of what you receive upon completion? I believe briefly. Could somebody just go back with that? Obviously, you get the designation of as a. Oh, thank you. Yeah. It's all right there. Master Security Instructor certification. Anybody want to elaborate a little bit more?
Well, if I understand the question correctly, I mean, the successful applicant will receive a certificate in the mail and will be registered with IFPO as part of the process, if that's what you're looking for.
I believe so. I believe it would mirror what other certificates of IFPO get as well, the PIN, the certification, and most importantly, as you said, you'll be registered as a certified Master Security Instructor with IFPO.
If I could just jump in too, we also, like you said, the MSI will receive all of the accessories that our other certifications provide, including optional accessories like a really nice wall plaque or a frameable certificate and other items at our IFPO store that will pretty much not advertise, but recognize that you're an MSI, and they will only be available to graduates, or not graduates, but to successful candidates of the MSI.
And it's definitely, Sandy, not something that should be taken lightly. It's indeed an honor to receive and earn this certification. So with that, I would like to thank all of you for joining for us from around the world to listen at this wonderful news to the for the Master Security Instructor certification from IFPO. Sandy Davies, our CEO, as well, Gary Bergen, Kevin Palacios, Glenn Kitteringham, and Nadeem Iqbal. Thank you very much for your acumen and your knowledge and all your commitment to this committee. With that, everybody be safe, and we will all see you again soon, talk to you again soon.
I just want to jump in and say very, very quickly that if we have not answered any of individuals' questions, you can still submit them to IFPO, and we will do our best to follow up and answer those questions. Absolutely,
Glenn. Thank you. Take care, everybody.
Thank you, everybody, for joining
Thank
us
you.
today.
Yes, and thank you. Bye-bye.